I couldn't at times see what the All Blacks game plan was, what they were trying to achieve.
You know, we look as though we might be making strides and then we get smacked back like we did in Buenos Aires.
A lot of the games are being decided in the final quarter, which shows you how narrow the margin is between the sides.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics New Zealand National Summer Games is in Christchurch, Ōtautahi, this December. Across New Zealand, Aotearoa athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's Novus, Novus, to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Christchurch, Ōtautahi this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Oh, he's done it again, Ricky Hogan.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. We're still talking about it. Of course we're talking about it. Rugby. Not just the All Blacks versus England. We've got matches coming up this weekend. Autumn internationals, of course. And some news overnight about the Nations Cup. The draw has been put out for next year. What a competition that is going to be when you look at that fixture list. So Gavin Mairs from the Telegraph out of the UK joins us. And it's been a little while, but welcome back to the show, mate. It's a pleasure having you on board.
Oh, fantastic, Martin. Always a pleasure. Yeah, no, I think our last chat was in Auckland last July, I think it was. So, and this time we're talking about an England victory, which has been a long time coming against the All Blacks.
Yeah, well, look, let's just touch on that, obviously, because it's the topic of jour. It's du jour. It's uppermost in the mind. As you can imagine, we're doing a lot of navel-gazing back here, and we're picking the bones of this. We've got a lot of work to do with this All Black side, but that was a brilliant performance from England, and I'd like to pay credit, for what it's worth, to Steve Borthwick, who I thought, tactically got it right. Big ballsy calls on that subs bench as well, but an England side that has just been building nicely all year, and it's a tough job, that job, perhaps not as tough as being the football coach. I mean, you wear it a lot, but he's certainly copped a lot, and he deserves his time in the sun after that, because that was a really well orchestrated win.
I totally agree, Martin. We've seen England develop really since the start of the year. They lost their first game in the Six Nations to Ireland, and following that they had tough, tricky games at Twickenham against France and Scotland. If they'd open up with three defeats, he might not even be in the job anymore. They managed to get home just by the skin of their teeth in both those games, and really since then England finished with a flourish against Wales. And really interestingly for me, I was obviously with the British and Irish Lions tour in Australia in July and August, but during that time England went to Argentina and they took quite a young group with one or two senior professionals like George Ford, and it wasn't just what the developing combinations at that time, but he also brought with him two new coaches, Brian McGuigan and Lee Blackett as well, who's taking England's attack now. And what we saw when he got back from that tour was he actually hired those two guys, and I think those two people have been really influential in giving England a kind of tactical street smartness. And I think what struck me on Saturday at Twickenham was just, it felt to me that England had a more sort of nailed down game plan, very specific what they were trying to achieve. With the All Blacks, they've obviously still got some brilliant players, very players who can cut teams open at any point, and we saw them race into a 12-0 lead. But to me, a vintage All Black side, when they get 12-0 in front, they win the game by 40 points. Yeah, it's just staggering to me to see an All Black side let anyone back into the game, and they've got off to that kind of start. And it was 25 unanswered points, as you know, and England ended up really as comfortable winners. So it was just, I couldn't at times see what the All Blacks game plan was, what they were trying to achieve, beyond very simple phases like trying to isolate George Ford in the defensive line, the outside channels. So, I think it's you're saying, last summer England didn't get over the line 3 times against the All Blacks, and I really feel that this victory will really give them confidence, because they haven't beaten too many teams above them in the world rankings, and this is obviously one. So a lot of expectation and optimism here, that England are on the, after 2 or 3 years of really tough times, are becoming a serious outfit again.
Look, a lot to unpack there. It was a comfortable win, and also an All Black side that, and this is the the worrying thing for us, that just hasn't shown any real progress. We look as though we might be making strides, and then we get smacked back like we did in Buenos Aires. We look like we might be making strides, we get smashed in Wellington. We look like we might be making strides, we get belted by England, and after 12 tests, it's still a side that looks confused and bemused, as you say, and it is worrying down this end. You're going to be a lot of soul searching over the summer for sure. A lot of headlines that I'm reading up your place about the All Blacks Oregon. It's not the first time that this gets bandied about, and probably does most times that the All Blacks lose. But when you look for patterns in international rugby, don't you, Gavin? And when you see a pattern, and I think every opponent of the All Blacks is looking at the All Blacks at the moment, going, well, you are vulnerable there. You are vulnerable there. You aren't learning that. Do you believe that that's the case, that we are a side that can be a lot more easily beaten at the moment?
I think, as you say, the evidence is there. I think the All Blacks remain they're a quality side with outstanding individuals within that. But what I don't see at the minute is that absolute collective. I guess that sort of determination, absolute.
The ruthlessness you talked about when you
certainty, ruthlessness, certainty of victory, and fear of failure. And we talked about this last year, but I did a big interview with David Kirk last week, and it was just he was recalling the '87 World Cup win, and it turned out to be ended up being a young side, but again based with ruthless winners, and I just don't get that feeling at the minute. Losing. You look at patterns. You say losing to South Africa, to that record defeat in, I think it was Wellington.
It was Wellington.
Shipped 40 points, and they had a patchy game against Ireland, who were very sort of rusty themselves. They could have lost to Scotland, and I have to say, last week when I was sort of previewing this match against England, I really thought England would win, and probably, but I think my prediction was sort of 11 points. I just didn't think England would give the All Blacks the same sort of escape routes that Ireland and Scotland did. And I think, listen, there's time yet, and there's no doubt that things can be corrected, and the athletic profile of your players and the skill sets are still there, but it just, to me, feels like they've just slightly lost that ruthlessness, and I guess the ability to take games away from opposition, and also, I guess, listen, this is going back in the day, but we always used to hear the stories of the All Black sides when they knew they were under pressure. There would just be a signal to each other, let's take the game away from this team, up the tempo for 15 minutes, and the game's gone. And at Twickenham on Saturday, it was the reverse was the case. Yeah. England took the game away from the All Blacks, and even with a late rally, it was still a comfortable victory for England. And I guess you've got to, as you say, give Steve Borthwick a lot of credit for where he's got England to tactically, and England are bringing through some good. It's a very mobile pack. It's not the traditional England set piece side that many of your listeners and viewers will remember. That they don't quite have the big heavy set forwards, but what they're doing is playing sort of three open side flankers in the back row, very mobile pack, and bringing a sort of tactical kicking game where they're winning the ball back in the air, getting their hands on possession, going again, and trying to really score tries from first or second phase, and keep energy levels up for when they're needed in the red zone. So exciting times for England and challenging times for New Zealand.
Yeah, 2 tries I think were off line-out set piece. So, and that says an awful lot for both England, and also says a lot for the fact that the All Blacks weren't defending that. A couple more questions on this just before we move on to the Nations Cup. Interviewing Scott Robertson yesterday, and he made the admission that he said some of his assistants are learning the trade on the job, which is quite a staggering thing to say when you think about All Black rugby, where we've been in the past, the amount of acumen and the brilliant coaches that we've sent all over the world that are coaching everywhere else in the world, that we're suddenly in a position where we got guys who are learning at international rugby during these matches or during the preparation for these matches. And again, it's something that we're quite flabbergasted by this. It's like, really, you've got to be kidding me there. And I think it shows. I mean, this is the thing, when you haven't improved your team over 12 tests this year, you've had 26 tests and you turn in a turd like that. Well, maybe that's because of this. Maybe this is a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll all remember the kind of Graham Henry, Steve Hansen, Wade Smith. It used to be such a brains trust experience. I mean, at one stage, the All Blacks probably had 3 or 4 head coaches in one group. That each could rotate and do the job. So, no, it's surprising, and obviously Scott Robinson's losing or has lost a coach, about to lose another. You wonder, how in terms of personalities and him settling on a group of assistants that they are working together, and that's something that Borthwick has done. Now, Borthwick's had lost coaches as well over the last 2 years, but I think what we've seen this summer post the Argentina tour, as I said, that he's got a group that he likes, works with, and he's able to build a team in his image, and maybe that's something that Scott Robertson has to address as well.
The Autumn Internationals have been cracker though, haven't they? I mean, we get to this part of the year. I know that you're starting your season, but down here, of course, we're getting into summer and everything else. And just to have every weekend where you're waking up and on a Sunday morning you can have breakfast and these matches are going on, it's just fantastic to watch. And this weekend, Ireland versus South Africa, and an Irish team, as you say, that now when you look at it, to be honest, they looked underdone in Chicago. They looked as though they were short of a match. The French probably the same against South Africa. Well, no excuses for the Irish this weekend. They've had a couple of games. They've had a great warm-up against Australia on the weekend. And boy, if there was any way that you could squeeze the England-South Africa match at Twickenham into the calendar, what a way to wrap the year there. That's not going to happen. But it's been brilliant, hasn't it? And for all of us who love our international rugby, every weekend has given us a lot to talk about, some absolutely brilliant, thrilling rugby to watch. And it's not that often that the All Blacks aren't the biggest draw card on the weekend, my friend, but that game, Ireland-South Africa, clearly is.
Yeah, as you say, Gordon, I've really enjoyed. I just get a feeling rugby has its issues, its financial issues, playing number issues, but at the minute, I feel Test rugby is in a brilliant place. I just think there's a lot of, some teams are going to go up, sometimes going to down, but at the minute we're seeing really good contests, and a lot of the games are being decided in the final quarter, which shows you how narrow the margin is between the sides, which is just fantastic. You look at the top 8 at the minute. Could you predict a quarter final of the World Cup at the minute and semi-finals?
No, that's right. Yeah.
It's fantastic, and as you say, like Ireland, there's been quite a lot of narrative up here looking at Ireland. Are they an aging side? Does Andy Farrell need to bring some new talent through? And meanwhile, we've seen South Africa just almost used this year. We've had hybrid players. We've had line-out mauls in the middle of the pitch. We've had...
we've now got this new tactic where they play with 14 every week.
14, sometimes 13, yeah. And still win. And I imagine the victory over France, I mean, to me, that was, I guess, alarming for everyone because, France... are great side. There was a fantastic atmosphere. I don't know if you got to see that game.
Yeah, watch that game. I was stunned by the South Africans after that game. Yeah, stunned. I actually said that I thought they're light years ahead of everyone else. I thought they're 2 scores better than most teams, if not every team.
Yeah. And their ability to just, I guess, the resilience of their players, their versatility. You're asking Andre Estiezen to come in and play on the flank, and he does it without a moment's thought. They've got, just got, big men who are capable of doing whatever it takes, and also without any sort of sense of, seems to me anyway, without a lot of any sense of ego. Player, we saw Sia Khaleesi taking off on his 100th cap to facilitate what was best for South Africa, and no, it's just got on with it. So, but as you say, Ireland, good win over Australia, a bit more like themselves, and it's now, they'll have had another week in camp. And this, to me, will just it just again gives us a climax to the autumn. If South Africa win this game comfortably, I think we'll know exactly where they are and what everyone else to do. But you can be sure that Ireland will be thinking this is their chance to reassert themselves among the top 3 and 4. And the stat was said to be this morning, Rassie Erasmus hasn't won a game in Dublin yet, and that's one of his unconquered territories. So
right.
They will have a massive edge to that as well, So it will be brilliant.
Also, England-Argentina, of course, this weekend, and the way that the Argentinians came back against Scotland as well, and the way that they play the Rugby Championship, they're absolutely legit. What a game that is. Nations Cup then, and the draw came out yesterday. Look, when you look at it on paper, it's such an exciting tournament. I do wonder whether it's in the right spot a year before the World Cup. I suppose it's going to give everyone an indication of where everyone is at. 6 nations versus the Rugby Championship plus Fiji and Japan on board there. How do you think all the teams are going to approach this? Because it isn't the World Cup, and you're going to get a nice shiny trophy at the end of it for winning it, but that's going to get quickly forgotten 12 months later. Is it a developmental kind of competition, or do you think that no, we're in to win this, and that will be the attitude of every team?
I think it'll be the latter. I don't think this will be developmental at all. I think it'll be a challenge to see how, we're bringing together the 2 windows, and I guess the whole logic behind it is to just have this narrative from July through to the end of November that, all the unions can package up and sell for more money to a broadcaster, but with jeopardy and as you say, a competition, so that the games in July will count to what happens at the end of our autumn. I think it's going to be challenging the first. I mean, looking from an England perspective, they're going to open up playing South Africa, probably in Johannesburg, then playing Fiji, maybe in Pretoria or Cape Town, and then flying to Argentina, Buenos Aires. So
that's a big trip.
There's 17,000 odd miles and that, and time zones, and playing Saturday. There's a little bit of me, the old traditionalist. I'm sad to see the traditional summer tours going. This, the 3 test series, in a sense, to me, we've got to in a good place, and I just love coming to a country. I love coming to New Zealand and spending 3 weekends or 2 weekends. And getting to, it's going to be a lot more functional. I think we're going to go out, play these tests. But I guess the goal is why it's being put in place is to give us, I guess, a real climax to the international season outside of a World Cup. And we're going to end up with a finals weekend in Twickenham next year anyway, and the north for the south. I wonder how many for the younger fans, how much how much value they put on which hemisphere they're in. I'm not so sure, but we shall see.
Oldies do. Yeah, no question. And finally, where does our 360 fit in with this? Because I'm looking at this, and then we've got 4 tests versus South Africa, of course. We've got a tour in there, and then we're going to have to get some other tests around there, because that's only 10 for the year. And the All Blacks, we like to sell 13 or 14. I mean, it's a big money-making business, and now the All Blacks are the only thing in New Zealand rugby that does actually bring the cash in. So where does our 360 fit into this, if it does? And if you launch that competition, you just think about it. So it can't be in July because all the attention's on this. Then after that, we're going to South Africa. So it's the All Blacks South Africa, really, and you've got a whole lot of hybrid teams and ex-rugby league and old guys running around and, really playing in a competition that is fresh off the board up against the traditional rugby fixtures. If squeezing it in is hard enough, I just don't know who in their right mind who's a rugby fan is going to be interested in watching that as opposed to watching some of the other stuff that's going on.
I completely agree. I don't know what. Well, maybe a question for you. I'm just fascinated to know how much traction it's getting down in New Zealand. How seriously it's being taken.
Zero.
Okay.
Look, and it's no disrespect to the players, but when you've got guys that are playing other sports who are being touted as their, I don't know. I'm just completely cold on them. I just think I don't care. It's like to me playing T20 cricket in the United States. Get the money, go and play it, whatever. But just don't expect me to watch it because there's too much sport I've got to watch and I'm not interested. I don't have time. That's how I look at it.
I think there are so many hurdles to get over before I think this thing even gets off the ground. So I think we'll find out more. I mean, there's so little we know. It was going to be the top 200 players. It's clearly not going to be that. A lot of players, a lot of senior or high-profile players in England anyway, have just been re-signing with their clubs in England. So, if you tell me who's definitely signed for an R360 club, I'd push you for that. The unions have come out strongly and said, if you do play in this, you won't play for your country again. And the organisers say December, January is meant to be the kind of launch of this thing. But, honestly, Martin, I honestly just, we've seen these things come and go. And I could be wrong on this, but I think it's going to be a real challenge to even get it off the ground.
Appreciate your time as always. And enjoy the next weekend or two as we wrap up an international rugby season. And rest assured, we will bounce back, my friend. It might take us a little while, but we will bounce back.
Will. Without doubt.
Huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes, along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff, will be making their way to Christchurch or Tautahi for the Special Olympics New Zealand 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help support the athletes too by texting Novus to 3598. That's Novus, Novus 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting us here on the DSPN. Windscreen, crack or chip, notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.